Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and these are the UNV book tags. So both of these tags were created by Jim over at Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff. He was creating a while back, months ago, a whole series of tag videos based on letters of the alphabet, and I'm getting to them very late, but I wanted to get to them, so I'm going to do them. So first we're going to go through the U tag and then the V tag. So the first prompt for the U tag is, U is for unicorn. What is your favorite fantasy creature? As my channel name would suggest, I like revenants. I like stories of the dead returning, often especially when they're up to no good. So I would say vampires and ghosts are my two favorite type fantasy creatures. U is for USA. If you are from the US, I am. Which state are you living in? What is special about that state? Well, I live in Connecticut. We're between, we've got, we're bordered with New York. I'm near the New York border. Massachusetts, Rhode Island. We're situated kind of halfway between Boston and New York City. Two pretty great metropolitan areas. And, Long Island Sound, beautiful coastal towns in our state. We have really good universities, actually. Yale University is down in New Haven. And I'd say the area where I live, where I'm up in Litchfield Hills, we have beautiful, just rolling hills, terrific scenic roads, and especially in the autumn when the leaves are changing, it's just gorgeous here. U is for USA and USSR. Do you have a favorite book about the Cold War? I don't know if I have a favorite. I don't think I've read enough books about the Cold War, but one that I know I really enjoyed and I've gone back to is Homeward Bound, American Families in the Cold War Era by Elaine Tyler May. It's kind of a social history that looked at the nuclear family and the nuclear age. And I think it was originally published in the late 80s. And then this edition was the second edition revised from the 90s. And yeah, it's just a really good social history about American families during that time period. U is for Uruguay, Uganda, UAE, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, and Upper Volta, now Burkina Faso. Have you read any books connected with any of these countries? Not exactly. I've read stuff on like the Russian Revolution and dealt with things like Ukraine, I guess. I do plan to read Bloodlands this year, which I think will also deal with Ukraine. I think it's all about the devastation that happened between Hitler and Stalin. I mean the area between those two psychopaths. So I'm hoping to read that later on this year. U is for underwater. What is your favorite book set underwater? 2,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Jules Verne. Still one of the best. U is for umbrella. What is a good book for a rainy day? I'm not sure. I don't usually read based on weather, but I guess something to get lost in. That's what I'll say about that. U is for urban fantasy. Have you read any urban fantasy? Do you have a favorite book in this subgenre? I don't think I've read much in the way of urban fantasy. I'm not too sure exactly what things I've read would qualify as urban fantasy. I mean, there's things that deal with fantasy and they're kind of in recognizable small cities, maybe. I'm thinking of something like his Dark Materials trilogy or something like that, but I don't think I've read much in the way of urban fantasy. U is for Ulysses. What does Ulysses mean for you in your reading life? And I think if he just means the name, I haven't read James Joyce. So when I think of Ulysses, I think of like the Odyssey. The Greek name Odysseus as opposed to the Roman name for that character. But also, I'm American, so when I hear Ulysses, I think of Ulysses S. Grant, the American Union general who beat Robert E. Lee, later became president, and somebody who I do want to read more about. U is for unread. Roughly what percentage of the books on your shelves remain unread? if we're talking about this room, this is where I generally put the books that I've read, and this is where they go. So maybe only about 5% of the books in this room are unread. Upstairs, it's like almost 100% because that's where I keep the stuff I need to read. That's like my TBR area. So, he does have some bonus prompts in here. U is for UFO. Have you seen a UFO? When I was a kid, I thought I saw plenty, but no, I don't think I did. Have you enjoyed a book exploring the first contact with aliens? I haven't read too much. I mean, I did like Carl Sagan's novel Contact. I do think that his writing strength is certainly more in nonfiction than in fiction, but I do think that it has some really cool concepts to it, and I like how he kind of played, or how religion would play into a first contact. You know, the debate over sending an atheist as opposed to somebody religious who would, you know, in some people's eyes represent a larger segment of the Earth population. So how the religious debate tied into that, I thought was really interesting. U is for upcoming. What book release are you looking forward to? I don't pay attention to new releases, so I really don't know. Now we're on to the V tag. The first prompt for the V tag is V is for vampire. What is your favorite vampire book? I mean, I've read some good ones, but I don't know how you can beat Dracula. It's just an absolute classic. I also do love things like Salem's Lot, by Stephen King. You've got Interview with the Vampire, which I read years and years ago. But yeah, I think Dracula is probably still number one. Sorry, you hear the buses going by right now. It's that counts for loud noises outside my window. V is for vintage classics. What is the last vintage classic you read? Actually, I think the last vintage classic was The Soccer War by Ryszard Kapuscinski. I think that was a vintage classic. So that, I think that's the last one that I read. V is for Villa Pacifica. What's the last book you read beginning with V? That would be Vathek, or Vatek. Not sure how it's pronounced, by William Beckford, the late 18th century Gothic novella, almost. V is for violence. What is the most violent book you've read? Say The Rape of Nanking by Iris Chang. Violence doesn't get much worse than that. V is for video. Which is your favorite of these alphabet videos? I don't know. They're all pretty fun. V is for Vanishing Half. Have you read it? Did you like it? I haven't read it. V is for Vermeer and Van Gogh. Whose paintings do you prefer? I like Van Gogh's work, but I think I'm much more into the Dutch Baroque. I love the contrast of light and darkness. And I'm also kind of partial to Vermeer's style. I know his most well-known is with The Girl with the Pearl Earring, but I like most of his other works more, actually. But yeah, I like Vermeer. V is for many places: Venezuela, Venice, Vienna, Vanuatu, Victoria, Vancouver, Vermont, and Virginia. Have you read a book from a place beginning with V? Yeah, I mean, I've read plenty of things relating, especially to mention Virginia, with respect to the American Revolution and the Civil War. Virginia comes up quite a bit. And, I'm currently reading The Hemmingses of Monticello by Annette Gordon Reed. And of course, Monticello was Thomas Jefferson's estate in Virginia. V is for vulture. Have you seen a vulture? Yeah, we have turkey vultures around us. Great big, ugly looking birds that I love looking at. We used to rent a half a duplex in the other side of town, and there was a house next to us that had these gables, and there would just be flocks of turkey vultures hanging out in the gables, and looking nice and ominous. But I used to love just sitting out back and watching them. V is for van. Have you lived in a van? I have not. And have you been following Kit's van life on Kit's World? No, I have not. And that actually concludes both the U and V book tags. So thank you, Jim, for creating those, and also he tagged me in the V tag. So thank you for tagging me in that. And as always, thank you, BookTube.